what's up everybody? Welcome back to another video. This is Justin Daniel Finance and I am Justin Daniel. Thank you so much for tuning into the channel today. And today I have a stock that is completely under the radar. There's not a lot of people out here on YouTube talking about this particular company right now. And in fact, this may be the first video on YouTube on this particular company, at least to my knowledge. This is a company that is potentially revolutionizing the architecture of computer chip processing. And if that sounds like something you're interested in, I think you're gonna wanna stick around because I'm gonna tell you all about this company. Definitely a smaller cap company that does have some risk-reward ratio that you're gonna wanna keep in mind. But if they are successful at implementing this new computer technology that is adopted particularly by AI and can be used for artificial intelligence computing, which if you're like me and a lot of other people out here feel is gonna be the next wave for computer technology, then this is a company that you might really be interested in taking a look. So please stick around to the end, and if you do get any value out of this video, please just do me one little favor and click the like button and click the subscribe button. If you subscribe to the channel down here, it will definitely help the channel grow and it would be greatly appreciated. So before I really get into the stock, I do want to address something for some of my friends out here and potentially some viewers who feel, look, I like the stock market, I want to get invested, but I just don't have enough capital to where it really is going to make a difference. So you might be someone out there who just doesn't have a lot of disposable income and you're kind of living, month to month, just trying to pay those bills. And I completely get it. So it may feel like, hey, yeah, it's great that there's stocks out here that might double, triple, quadruple. Some of these stocks like this one that might not only 10x, but potentially could be one of those rare companies that 50x, 100x, it's certainly possible. But you might feel like, hey, that's great, but if I only have, a few $100s here and there to invest, what does it really matter? It's not gonna make a difference. So I want to address that and I want to show you how, in fact, it actually can make a difference. And here's how. So the particular company that I'm gonna talk about is currently trading between the $6 to $7 range, okay? And I want you to think about this and I want you to ask yourself, could you afford to buy one share of stock for $7 every day throughout the year? And could you do that for a couple of years, like maybe 3 years? And in context, just really think about this. That's maybe the cost of a fancy Starbucks drink, maybe the cost of, going out to lunch rather than kind of, packing your own lunch once we get back into the offices out here and everything's reopening. But just kind of ask yourself, could you do that even if you're on a tight budget and you don't have a lot of disposable income? Because if the answer is yes, I want you to take a look at this and do this math. Let's say you bought one share for 365 days in a year. So that's $7 a share. And let's say, the stock market's not open on Saturday and Sunday. So in that case, you come through on Monday and you buy 3 shares. So if we did that math, 7 times 365 is $2,555. And you might, again, be saying, that's not a lot of money, Justin. Okay, I get it, but check this out. Let's say you do that now for 3 years, and 3 times that is 7,665. So that's how much you've invested just by simply, sacrificing that $7 per day. And that's just for easy math. But now, if this is one of the companies that could potentially 100x, take a look at this math. If you were to multiply that by 100, and this is something that would take many years to get to, but let's just say it goes up by 100 times, which is possible, you'd be looking at $766,000 within the decade. And ask yourself, could that really be some life-changing money for you that then you could then multiply into, real estate or, new stock portfolios that could really multiply with a similar strong growth, high risk, high reward kind of situation? And if the answer is yes, then why not give it a try? Let's say it's a 50x. If it was a 50x, the math on that would be $383,000. So even then, that's a lot of money for $7 a day. And that's the point that I'm trying to make, and I'm trying to educate for everyone out there who feels like, yeah, the stock market's just not for me because I don't have enough to invest. Look, if you're disciplined, And you definitely have to be disciplined, and you also have to be willing to take a risk, a calculated risk on your own due diligence, not on anyone from YouTube's personal advice, but your own conviction of whether you think a stock could really grow and multiply many times over the years. But if you can't have that discipline and stay focused and consistent, I'm just trying to show you, my friends, that you certainly can make a lot of life-changing money over the years. So enough about that. That was just kind of something I really wanted to address, because a lot of my friends out there, kind of wondered how they can get ahead if they don't have a lot to invest. And hopefully that was helpful. And again, if that was helpful, please do like, subscribe to the channel, because I'm going to share a lot of my philosophies about the market in general, as well as try to educate on a lot of different things about the stock market, in addition to bringing you good tips about good companies that I think are worth talking about. Now, without much further ado, let's talk about the specific stock already. This company is called GSI Technologies, and the ticker symbol is GSIT. And this is a company that's been around for quite a while, actually. They IPO'd, decades ago. They've been around. They have big customers like Nokia, as an example. They produce a lot of good revenue. They got a lot of cash on hand. I'll get into the financials specifically, but just kind of give you an idea that this is not just an up-and-comer, fly-by-night kind of company with no revenue. This is a company that has a legacy revenue model of their computer chips, but they have not yet brought to market the new kind of revolutionary or potentially revolutionary type of computer chip that I mentioned at the beginning of this video. The reason I wanted to point that out is because I feel that's a little bit lower risk than a potential company that's either an over-the-counter stock or a company that hasn't really generated much revenue or any revenue in some cases. They have, and they've been around for a while, so it makes me feel a little bit confident that their chance of just kind of, disappearing overnight is small. And that doesn't mean there's not a risk, because of course there's always a risk. But, this is an established company, I guess, is the point that I'm getting at. Now, this company first came on my radar by this gentleman here who I follow on Twitter. And by the way, if you want to follow me on Twitter, here's my handle. Definitely appreciate people subscribing and commenting and interacting there. But this particular individual, I'm not going to pronounce the name. I don't know personally. I don't want to butcher the name, but he is someone that I followed for quite a while. I definitely think he's someone that's had a lot of good stock picks and insights. And as you can see, he was a CEO of a company that was acquired by Qualcomm. So, definitely someone who would have more knowledge than, me, to be quite honest, about computer chips. And he also has a PhD in engineering on his bio here. So with that given, there's a little bit of credibility. Again, never just trust anyone based on, one recommendation, but it does seem like there's definitely the credentials here. And he had posted a while back about what kind of stock do you think could potentially 50x or even 100x. And on that list of a few different stocks that was mentioned, GSI Technologies was one that was on the list. And it was one that intrigued me. So I've been doing a little bit of my own due diligence, and I've taken a small position, looking to potentially build upon this position more and more if I continue to kind of like what I see and don't see any red flags in the due diligence process. And by the way, I am going to give you kind of the bear case in addition to the bull case, or at least some bullet points so you can kind of weigh the pros and the cons. But for me, I'm pretty excited about this, because what this company is doing is potentially breaking what's known as the von Neumann bottleneck. And I'm not an engineer, but let me give you my kind of fundamental basic understanding of what this means. So it means that computer chips historically have been under an architecture known as the von Neumann system or language or whatever they call it, in which the chip has a separate piece for the memory and then a separate piece for the processing. And so those two are kind of separated, and given that fact of the separation, there can be a bottleneck in the processing times, because my understanding, and if any engineers out there can explain this better, please do go ahead and write in the comments and let me know, because I am, a CPA and an MBA in finance, but I'm not an engineer. But my understanding is that the memory part definitely slows down the speed at which the processing can occur because of the separation. And so what GSI Technologies has created through an acquisition and through their own, self-funded R&D to bring this to market over several years is an ability to process within the memory. So that's right, instead of being separated and having that bottleneck that really slows things down, they've created a chip that can process within the actual memory component of the chip, so it's no longer separated. And apparently this is a really good breakthrough that can really help in the world of AI, which again I think is on the forefront of just being, this new technology that a lot of people are going to really want and really use in, the coming years ahead. So to be on the forefront and potentially be invested before this chip comes to market and really takes off and gets adopted within the world of AI, I think it's a chance to start building that position before it takes off. And if they are successful in not only bringing this to market, but getting a lot of customers and positioning as the dominant player in this new type of computing technology that's going to be very good for AI, then I think it's a rare opportunity to get ahead of Wall Street and ahead of a lot of the buying activity that will really shoot the stock price up and the market capitalization up if and when they do in fact have success in bringing this to a broader market. And I'm going to bring both the bullish and the bearish case. But to start off with the bearish case, I just kind of want to highlight some of these things that I found in my due diligence. And there's not a lot out there, but this was a really good write-up that I want to kind of throw up on the screen here and walk through, because I think it definitely does a very good job of laying out the bullish case for this particular company. Okay, so here is a write-up that I thought did a really good job of outlining the bullish case for this company. And keep in mind, it looks like it was published in September of 2020. So obviously with the most recent quarterly reporting, maybe some of the numbers that are cited in here is going to change, but I think it's still relevant and makes a lot of good points. So it's titled Quietly Building a Revolution in Chip Architecture, GSI Technology. And it goes on to say a relatively unknown small cap company with less than 150 million market cap, but a profitable core business and sells to manufacturers such as Nokia, has been working on a revolutionary computing chip over the last 5 years that's getting very close to commercialization. With target markets in a fast-growing AI space, big data, bioinformatics, computer vision, visual search, and cybersecurity, GSI Technology's new Gemini Associative Processing Unit, APU, has the potential to be a game changer. So, he goes on to say that the growth prospects are very high, again pointing out that artificial intelligence is the future of technology. Every major technology company and the brightest minds in science and engineering are working hard to rapidly improve the performance and efficiency of both computing hardware and software to deal with the challenges and opportunities of big data. And the AI chip market is expected to reach $100 billion by 2025 at a 45% compounded annual growth rate. And then also kind of mentions down here what I was mentioning about the von Neumann model. It says that the chip is using a different computing paradigm that mimics how the brain works, changing the architecture from the von Neumann model to computing entirely in memory and thus removing that bottleneck. So that's really cool. And then if we look at what he says is the risk profile, it says it's very low, and says it's very rare to find a company that has such an attractive risk to reward profile. Again, that's his opinion, this is not advice, but a strong balance sheet with nearly half of the market cap in cash and cash equivalents, no debt, a profitable core business trading at fair valuation, and aligned and with an incentivized management with 35% insider ownership and almost no expectations built into the stock for this Gemini APU, which again is this new kind of technology in memory processing. So he's kind of making the case that this is very high reward but very low risk potential, and obviously that's something you always want to go for, but again, this is just one take. The company was founded in Silicon Valley in 1995 and went public in 2007. So again, it's a company that's been around for a long time. They've been a publicly traded company for a long time. So they have that longevity going for them. Coming off of significant multi-year patent infringement lawsuit. So I guess there was some sort of patent infringement lawsuit. They were successful, so they've got the win behind them on that apparently. The existing core business continues to be in a state of long-term decline, but again, they're looking to turn it around. And so these new technologies should begin to show some financial results in the coming 12 months. Let's see, what else? Currently has 70 plus engineers in the US and Israel, and an IP portfolio that consists of 20 patents granted with an additional 23 pending. So that's really good, because I mentioned earlier about, competition, and if they do have these patents and they're strong IP patents that have already been granted, as well as some that are pending, that's good as well. Now, when we talk about the financials, he points out out here that the revenues have been between 40 or 50 million. So, they've consistently been generating these revenues. Free cash flow is neutral over the last 12 months. But if you add back the 20 million that was spent on R&D for the Gemini APU, then you would have a core business that does about 20 million in free cash flow. So based on an enterprise value of 86 million market cap that's net of cash and debt, this implies that it's trading around 4 and 3 multiple, which is very reasonable and even arguably cheap valuation, and I would agree with that. So last but not least, it says as of June 30th, the company has 64 million cash and cash equivalents. Now, I think that has gone down a little bit, but that's okay. They've got a good runway. The burn rate isn't big. They haven't had to raise any additional debt or equity that I've seen. So I think that all of these things really add up to be a potentially good and attractive company to consider building a position in. Now let's take a look at some of the decks from the most recent investor deck. So here's a first slide that just kind of gives a visual of the bottleneck because of the memory intensive aspect that causes this bottleneck and slows everything down. A little overview about the company, just saying that they've done 43 million annual revenue 2020, 172 employees worldwide with 114 engineers. This says 92 patents granted, 64.7 million cash and equivalents, and 124 million enterprise value. So basically, again, just kind of highlights they were founded in 95. They've been around for a long time. They're a leading provider of a very fast current chip. They have a high portfolio of high performance memory, but they're launching the Gemini APU, which I think is the most attractive, and I don't think it's priced in really yet. 35% insider ownership is good, although I will highlight there has been some insider selling. And then a small market cap of only 188 million at the time of this particular slide, which again is a small market cap. And when compared to some of the big players that have a much larger market caps, there's a lot of room to grow if they're successful on the Gemini launch. Capital efficient. This is very good because they're CapEx light. So that's really good because they've got a light CapEx business model and they're able to manufacture with this production process. Strong cash generation. Again, this is good because you want a company that's able to generate cash, free cash flow. That just means that they're going to be able to continue as a business and operating without having to dilute your shares by issuing more equity or go out and take the expense of raising debt that they have to pay back with interest. Launching new products. Again, this is the biggest one, the Gemini APU in my particular opinion, but they also do mention the radiation hardened and radiation tolerant. These are some new chips that are going to be good for the aerospace and defense sector. Again, I'm not an engineer, so I can't really speak to this, but I do like the fact that they're coming out with these new chips that's going to help with the core business as they move on to what I'm more interested in, which is the APU that could potentially be a game changer for the AI sector. Leveraging their expertise in a new product categories, so they're just kind of highlighting that. They're talking about the limitations again of the von Neumann architecture, which creates this massive bottleneck, and that's the problem that they're looking to solve with this new launch. This APU removes that bottleneck and basically is a revolutionary computing model, so that's really interesting. Talking about some of the target applications right now, facial recognition, drug discovery, and toxicity, and that's for the pharmaceutical industry because there's always a lot of companies trying to find new drugs they can bring to the market. Genomics, which is a big one. If you follow Kathy Wood and ARC, is a you might be aware of because she tends to say this is a future game changer. And these other areas that could potentially be a really good fit for applications for the new Gemini APU. The roadmap. So they're talking about the timing, and they're already saying that they've kind of got it started here in 2020 to early 2021 for the Gemini 1. Gemini 2 looking to come out later in 2021 toward 2022. So again, this is where it's going to be really important that not only do they develop, but they're able to bring it to the market by selling it and getting a lot of new customers, really, quite frankly. So why invest now? This is their pitch. This is not advice. This is not even my opinion. This is their pitch, but they say timing. So increasing the awareness of a memory-centric processor can solve the limitations of the current AI processors. The trends. Gemini's advantages of more AI computing and search happens at the edge, which means there's a smaller footprint, lower power usage, and lower total cost of ownership. The validation. Published benchmarks validate APU's processing and memory deliver significant performance gains versus the existing solutions. Now, go-to-market process. They're building industry awareness with customers and they're testing boards. And then GSI Technology is a leading public company play for in-memory computing with an attractive risk-reward profile. So saying limiting the downside, almost half the company's market cap in cash with a low burn rate and a significant upside given the AI opportunity within a 3 to 5 year horizon. So that's what I'm looking at. That's what I think is the exciting, the potential ability to really grow with a potentially low risk scenario because they are generating cash. They do have other products that have been tested in the market. So that's what I think is pretty cool. But I do think we should highlight some of the bearish points. So again, some of the risks is that, there was some insider selling, which is a bit of a red flag. Another risk is just simply that they're a smaller cap company and there are bigger companies out there. So like, for example, you have companies like Nvidia, which have a market cap of almost 500 billion or something like that, depending on the day. They're huge and there's other very big players in the space as well. And so even though there's been a chip shortage and there's gonna be this need for a much faster processing with AI in the future, it doesn't mean that some of these bigger competitors can also come up with their own chip that can kind of solve this bottleneck problem or, find different solutions to increase the computing speed that's going to be needed for AI. And if they do, they've got a lot bigger, kind of war chest, so to speak, in which they can go out and they have a bigger team to, marketing and sales and just big customer relationships. So definitely keep that in mind as a potential risk as well, because, if GSI Technologies is going to be out there, they're going to really have to step up the game in terms of just marketing and sales and getting it out there. Because another thing to think about on the bearish side of things is that they have been around for a long time, and even though if you would have bought the IPO, you'd be up today, you wouldn't be down, you wouldn't really be up a lot either, because this isn't one of these companies that's just had monumental growth, quarter over quarter, year over year, or anything like that. They've been relatively consistent over many years. So again, kind of lower risk in that regard. But you got to ask yourself, if they haven't been able to really step up and kind of dominate or take bigger market share, at least over so many years, what makes us feel that they're going to be able to do it now? So that's a question you got to ask yourself. To me personally, I feel like, look, if the technology really is great and really does solve a problem that's going to be extremely helpful for AI, then there's a good chance that they're going to be able to do that. But again, you got to weigh those risk reward of the fact that there's competition. They may not be successful. Another thing is that on their current revenue model, they have a high concentration of their customer base, which is always a risk because, look, if you have a high risk of concentration with only a handful of big customers, guess what? If you lose one of those customers, then your revenues overnight can just really shoot down, and that can, that news can send the stock down. So something to keep in mind. So there you have it, folks. That was, kind of the bear case, the bull case, a stock that could potentially make millionaires, if you're able to build a big enough position and the company's able to get a foothold in bringing this new chip to market, and they're actually able to bring a stock increase of 50x to 100x over the decade. It could be a millionaire maker stock. I don't want to be too hype about it because, look, it could also, you could lose, you could lose some, you could lose 50%. You could lose 100%, really. I don't think anyone's going to lose 100% overnight on this stock, obviously. And I also want to keep in mind that when your risk reward ratio is potentially losing, what you put in versus potentially getting 50x or 100x, that is pretty attractive. And you just got to ask yourself, how much would I be able to lose if in fact it did go to zero? So that's kind of my take on it. But if you go back to my earlier example of, that $7 cup of coffee every day, what do you really have to lose over the course of a few years? So, that's kind of what I think. I personally, again, it's only 1% of my portfolio, not even 1% of my portfolio currently. However, I am looking to add more. I am looking to build a larger position. I am looking to do more due diligence. And if anyone out there has any good information or comments you can leave, please let me know, because look, there's not a lot of information out there. It's not easy to find. But I am interested and I will continue to bring updates. If I find breaking news or updates or, quarterly financial reporting has anything interesting, I'll give you updates over the course of the coming, months and quarters ahead on this company. But for right now, I just wanted to bring it to your attention because I think it's potentially an interesting stock. You might want to consider investing in it if it makes sense to you. Again, I'm not a financial advisor. This is just my own opinion only, and I'm just kind of being honest with you about what I take on it. I'm not going to invest and risk too much at the current moment, but I'm going to slowly build, and we'll see if it pays off over the coming years ahead. So that's what I got for you. I hope you like it. I hope that everyone out there will consider subscribing to the channel because it's going to help the channel grow. It's going to allow me to bring more and more good content to you over the coming weeks, months, quarters, and hopefully years ahead. And if you like that, then please subscribe. Help me get to my goal of 1,000 subscribers. It would be greatly appreciated. And if you've watched all the way through to the end, thank you so much. So I'm going to wrap up now by saying, thank you so much for watching all the way through to the end. This has been Justin Daniel Finance. I am Justin Daniel. You all are awesome. I really hope you have a great rest of your day. I hope we all make some money in the stock market together. And until next time, take care.